Welcome to the Now podcast. I'm host Dan Egito. Today we're talking with Scott Taylor, who runs the Black Heritage Museum of Arlington. Before we get started, let's first tell you about our sponsor for this episode. Here at ARL Now, we've worked out of industrious co-working spaces for years, and honestly, it's been a great experience. Everything's taken care of, the coffee is brewed, the supplies are stocked, and you can just focus on your work. If you're looking for a productive workspace, Industrious has metro accessible locations right here in Arlington. Check them out at industriousoffice.com. Scott Taylor, good to see you.
Thank you. Same here.
How are you doing this afternoon?
We're doing great. A little cold. We're doing great, but it's going to get warmer. So that's always enlightening, something to look forward to.
Yeah. Have you been having to shovel the sidewalks?
Well, that's a good question. I did my walk, but you're supposed to get the sidewalk in front. But it's just like it's hard ice,
Hmm.
and so I'm not going to exonerate myself. I'm not. So hopefully, when it gets a little warmer and it melts a little bit, I can maybe at least try to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm really happy to have you on the show today.
Thanks.
For our listeners out there, we're
Hmm.
trying a new format for this show where we have hosts guests on and we just talk with them about various topics and of interest around Arlington. And so I thought, with it being Black History Month, who better to talk to than you? I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your work at the Black Heritage Museum of
Well,
Arlington.
we've been open for a long time, and sometimes I get a little upset when people say I never heard of it because we've been around since 1995, and I'm always on television or in the newspaper. But we've been doing service for a long time now, trying to educate people on the exhilarating Black history in Arlington, Virginia. Some of the contributions that some of the African Americans made from slavery up to now. Um, Arlington is a thriving, beautiful place, but it didn't just get there by itself. There were people who are unsung that contributed a lot to making Arlington the beautiful county city. I think we're like one of the number one places to live in America, something like that. So it
Hmm.
didn't just come by chance. It's a lot of hard work, blood, tears, the whole thing.
Absolutely, yeah. I feel like Arlington's Black history in particular often does go overlooked or just a lot of people just don't know about it. I was wondering, like, could you share some, key moments of Arlington's Black history with our listeners?
Well, actually, our Black history starts at the Arlington House, really. I mean, basically, the Custis people bought over slaves to build the Arlington House. And so the Arlington House was a huge plantation. And after, when slavery was abolished, comes Freedmen's Village, which was right there at the Arlington graveyard there. And these people would come from all over to learn how to read, write, to live the American dream. And when they came off of Freedmen's Village, people bought land. Up until probably maybe even 1920, Arlington was about 75-80% African American. A lot of
Wow,
the
that's incredible. That's a
This
huge
was a
number.
black town. This was a
Yeah.
black town, and what happened was because after the Civil War, a lot of the white people fell on hard times, and they sold their property cheap and moved down south. And these black people would come off Freeman's Village, and because you had to learn to work, you had to work, you had to have a job, the whole thing, and they ended up buying property. And so we're talking about Reconstruction. We had our first black delegate in the 1800s, William Fairfax, and about 1900 when Jim Crow started to come in and sort of changed everything. Changed everything.
Mhm. Mhm. So 70 to 80% of Arlington was
Hmm.
Black back then.
Hmm.
What happened?
Well, what happened was you had some people that um, were afraid because these black people were resilient. I mean, you think slavery was over what in 1863, and by the 1870s, people were buying property up, you know, just maybe 10, 15 years out of slavery, and it was sort of taking over. And then we had developers come in and they had these ideas for Arlington and it just didn't include them. So in comes these Jim Crow laws that say you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't go there. People were losing their property left and right. If you were a month behind, you get your property snatched up. There was a lot of
Hmm.
eminent domain going on. I think by 1920 it went down to probably 20%.
Wow. Who was responsible for this, and, like, what were some of the motivations?
Well, that's a good question because Freeman's Village was created by the government. These people, sort of, and they wanted these people up here because they were able to join the Union Army, and people will come up here for that reason. And then, of course, when Freeman's Village was erected, just a place where it became like a thriving neighborhood. Really, it was thriving, and it had 3 and 4 churches, hospital, schools, you name it. It was self-contained. We had visitors that came up like Harriet Tubman. She would come up and teach and nurse and things like that. Frederick Douglass was often a frequent visitor there. And of
Here in
course,
Arlington.
yeah,
Wow.
Sojourner Truth lived here in Arlington. You could say Harriet Tubman lived here for also probably maybe a year. I think Sojourner did 2 years here. Some of this, especially like Columbia Pike, people walked up and down there. So those folklore heroes were actually here. And because these people were thriving so much, the new incoming administration or whatever, maybe in Arlington, did not want Freeman's Village there anymore. And
Mm,
so they decided to abolish it 1900, and things just really began to change there.
gotcha. So, I know you talked about a couple methods of displacement, basically.
Mhm.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what methods were used, to try and displace some of Arlington's Black
Well,
folks?
yeah, you had things like poll tax. You had uh, uh, um, because people only made maybe, I don't even know, some people made $6 a month, and you had to choose maybe one month. Anybody maybe had to choose a month. Well, I'm going to pay mortgage. Or I'm going to buy my family food, and it got to the point where they were just finding all kinds of reasons to displace these people, take their property. And we had some churches and some organizations that would have parties and things like that to help people pay their rent and things of that nature. But that got to be a little bit rough. A lot of people moved away. A lot of them at that time moved down like Southern Maryland, Pamunkey, down those places like that. And then
Gotcha.
out of Freeman's Village, those who could afford it, went to the prominent neighborhoods we had in Arlington, which was Johnson Hill, Green Valley, Halls Hill, and they went to those areas. But I wish I have a map for you. Show the map that you should see all the different Black neighborhoods that were in Arlington at one time. I mean, just it
Mhm.
was just horrendous. Boston, where the mall used to be, Boston was a Black area. The Pentagon parking lot was Queen City. So those people were moved off too in a very mean way. So you had people thriving, but it was always something that would come and sort of block and sort of deter people from staying here.
Mhm. I've heard that, the construction of the Pentagon may have contributed to some of this. Is that true? Can you tell me anything
Right.
about
Well,
that?
we were going into World War II. I'm talking about 1942, and so the Pentagon was, played a very important part. Um, and but they decided that they wanted different ways to get into the Pentagon, and one of the ways through there would be Queen City, which right off of Columbia Pike, where the Sheraton Hotel started there. It was around that area, and they told the people that this was going to happen, that they were going to confiscate this land, but they didn't tell them when. So you see what I'm saying?
Mm.
So, you think one morning you get up to have a cup of coffee and there's a bulldozer knocking down houses. That's how people had to come out of there.
Wow.
Um, One of the residents, there's one that's still living, Mr. William Bolling, who I talk to quite frequently to hear some of the stories because he remembers very well. He probably was 7 or 8 years old back then, but he remembers very well what had happened there. And they had churches and stores and a fire department and all of those things. It was self-contained and it was snatched out in front of them. And so someone wrote a note to the Eisenhowers, and Eleanor Eisenhower decided to have a trailer park. And of course, trailers were against the law even back then in Arlington, but she was able to get two trailer parks where these people could stay until they could find permanent housing. Um, and it was just a trailer park full of mud, but they had a school and they would have laundromat and things of that nature there. But it was worse. It was way worse than being in Freeman's Village or something like that. So, these people drive, they drive, they
Mhm,
drive.
mhm. Where was Freedman's Village?
Freeman's Village was, well, basically it's on the south side, the Pentagon parking lot. But if you go Columbia Park and you keep going, you see the Sheraton Hotel, and that's basically where it started. And the property came from Mount Olive Baptist Church, which is still thriving. And they bought some land and they sold land to these people. And these people just built modest houses. Some of them built them themselves. Wasn't much on electricity and water, but people were proud of what they had. And like I say, uh, uh, a lot of them weren't even given a warning, and
Mm,
they were just pushed out of that neighborhood. And
wow.
the fascinating thing about that is, like, all these years later, it's getting all this attention. There was a guy at PBS just won a Academy Award. He did a documentary about it. A mini documentary. People working. Somebody called me the other day. They were working on the documentary also about what
Mm,
happened at Queen City.
mhm, mhm. Um, you know, obviously this displacement, it's I mean, it sounds like really just a tragedy,
Hmm.
these communities kind of getting torn apart,
Hmm.
and yet some of them finding ways to stay here and survive, even thrive. Can you
Right.
tell me about some of the contributions of the
Well,
Black community?
yeah, contributions. There's a lot of them. But these people, this is what Black history is all about. I mean, I've had some kids come to me, I shouldn't say, maybe college, and maybe some people that are maybe in their 20s, and 30s, and they'll say, well, you know, um, I don't want to hear about Black history because it's all about slavery. That's not what Black history is about. Evolving and surviving it. And I said earlier about how resilient these people were. So they learn how to pick themselves up and start all over. Sometimes two and three families had to live in a house together.
Mhm,
That's how my mom got here. My mom came from Lexington, Virginia, Rockbridge County, and had to live with my uncle. A couple of them slept in closets. And then,
mhm,
grandfather got a job up here, save his money. Then he gets a house. Somebody moves up. You did things like that. And then people, saved and bought property, especially in the Black areas where the property was cheaper. It was cheaper to live on Johnson Hill or Green Valley back then. And they created these thriving neighborhoods. Our neighborhoods, not Johnson Hill, but Halls Hill was one of the ones that had everything. We had stores up there. We had our own fire department, schools. So these places became like villages, and people worked together.
mhm,
A lot of them were church-going people, and they helped each other.
mm,
I know in my neighborhood, I grew up on Halls Hill, up until, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years ago, that it was 100% Black. I knew every single person in that neighborhood. I've been to every single person's house. So it really was a village, and that's how these people thrive, by
mhm,
bringing their means together and
mhm.
making things happen.
Yeah. You
Hmm.
mentioned multiple families living together.
Hmm.
It makes me think about back when I was covering some of the missing middle stuff, one argument that I heard was that the origins of single family zoning in Arlington are sort of tied up in some of these racist
Of course.
actions back in the day. Is that true?
Yes, because up until, I think it's going on 3 years now, it was against the law to have two family housing in Arlington. That's the Jim Crow law that
Right.
happened early on, because, as I mentioned, that's how a lot of Black people were coming up here. There would be two and three families in these houses, and then They would do things like that. Well, they put a law against that to keep that from happening, and that law was lifted about 3 years ago.
Mm,
Um, and so, and I guess then one of the reasons they did it was because, they're not building single family housing anymore. We're building, McMansions in Arlington, and it's a lot of them is going to take two families to pay the mortgage and pay the taxes on these places. You're talking about, I don't know, what's $6,000-7,000 a month mortgage on some of these places. So people are going to have to come together again. Things are just getting to that point where we really gonna have to lean on each other
mhm.
again for food. A whole lot of just simple things are not going to be simple anymore. Right.
You mentioned these tight-knit communities that
Hmm.
people were forming,
Hmm.
partly because they had to,
Right.
living on hard times.
Hmm.
What were some of the cultural contributions coming out of Arlington's Black communities back then?
Well, when we say cultural, what do you mean by cultural?
Well, were there any contributions people might know about to the arts or
Before the neighborhoods, there was slavery, and it was a lot of slavery going on in Arlington. Right now, I'm part of an organization called Memorializing Arlington's Enslaved.
Mhm,
And so what we're doing is we're finding the names of these people and we're putting their names on plaques around the city because they did
mhm,
a lot of hard work for free. So see that's the biggest contribution right there, free labor that
mm,
these people come from. Because when we got to our neighborhoods, we stayed in them. My school was in the neighborhood. Or like I said, the stores were in the neighborhood. The only thing we didn't have was a hospital, but we had midwives that would come because a lot of people were scared to drive over to DC. Now, my mom and dad, we live one block, not even a block from Arlington Hospital. But I'm at that age where my mom couldn't have me in Arlington. They had to go to DC. So,
mhm,
I had know somebody had a car, take you over there. Or if you couldn't make it, like my aunt, who is 3 years older than me, she's one of the ones born in the house. You call a midwife, come over there and help out and things like that. So we were sort of self-contained. I don't know, as far as contributions later on, we were just thriving ourselves.
mhm,
But
mhm,
the contributions that I would say we have given now is a lady who I still go to church with. She's in her 80s. Her name is Portia Haskins, and she was the one that was very instrumental in abolishing the poll tax. Okay. 3 doors up from where I live was a lady named Dorothy Ham, who was very instrumental in getting Arlington schools integrated. Arlington is the
mhm,
first school system in Virginia to be integrated. That came from us. So uh, we made contributions that way. There's a guy named Kamal. He was in the Super Bowl twice. He went to WNL, lived
wow,
2, 3 doors down the street from me, and made a lot of contributions that way.
gotcha.
Yeah, a lot of
Okay,
people coming up here now, brown and black people, to realize that a lot of us were the ones who spearheaded a lot of things that the freedoms they have now. I mean, of course, we know we couldn't even at the People's Drugstore, and my dad worked there, but
mhm,
you could buy food out of there, but you couldn't sit at the counter for a long time.
mhm,
And
hmm,
we fought to get that changed. So
wow,
those are the contributions, I would say, fighting for civil rights and integration for everybody from these people. And some of them are still alive today.
mhm. We just recently had a story on Arl Now about integration in Arlington,
Hmm.
which just passed some mile mark anniversary, I believe. Can you tell our listeners more about the role that Arlington played in integrating public schools in Virginia?
Well, people going along with what was happening. It got to the point where because a lot of the students, black students, had to go to DC. Because see, back in those days, the schools were like almost like college. You majored in things like, you could major in auto mechanics or office work and things like that. And maybe our black school, which was Hoffman Boston, didn't have it because, for instance, they didn't have auto mechanics. And so you may have to go to Armstrong or something in DC and get that. Well, it costs so much per student. And DC was telling them, look, you all were supposed to integrate a long time ago. We can't keep having these kids come over here. It's costing us too much money. And so they pretty much got the government to demand it. And the first four students that were there came from my neighborhood. I know their families very well,
Mm,
and they integrated Stratford. And then when the other cities heard about it, they followed suit and did the same thing. So we were the first integrated public school. Now,
mhm,
the first integrated school in Arlington would be there was a school at Fort Myer because you some people lived on base and they had kids, and they had a school there. That school was integrated, and talk about the four students, as you always see that picture of those kids going into Stratford. Well, actually, the first kids that went to what we call the white school was a man named Green, and he went to WNL back in 1949. They won a case where he was able to go to WNL to learn auto mechanics, and his name was Oscar Green. And what's so funny is uh, he ended up being a teacher at WNL in the 60s.
mhm. I know that today, certainly, you ask most people in Arlington about their values. This area's got a lot of progressive values, a lot of strong emphasis on diversity, equity, that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. But what was the status quo in Arlington? What was its approach to integration back in the day? What kind of resistance was there to that kind of cultural change, back when integration was happening and Jim Crow was starting to come down?
Right. Well, that's interesting because at the same time as you say, maybe Jim Crow was coming down. Don't forget that we had the Nazi Party here. This
Mm,
Arlington was the main station for the Nazis. So they were stationed in Clarendon. I think it was Clarendon, right before you get to maybe Virginia Square. And so they were doing little things, picketing and having racist names on top of the house and things. But people were trying. Yorktown is where I graduated from, Yorktown Senior High. They were the last to integrate. But I remember before they got a black student, they ended up having a party with you're probably too young to know who Wilson Pickett is. But Wilson Pickett was like a superstar in the 60s and 70s, and they got him, and that was to bring black and white people together. There's a church, Mount Olivet. They ended up having a dance there because even when the
mm,
schools got integrated, like in this like 64, 65, they still didn't allow the kids to go to dance together. So the church
mhm,
would do things. So when I started Cub Scouts, I had a white Cub Scout leader. So people were trying. But at the end of the day, people were also scared. My dad was asked several times to get out and protest and do this and do that. And he had just got a job with the post office. And he's like, I have 5 miles to feed. I can't afford it. Everybody was sort of thinking that. A lot of people that wanted to get involved, but they had too much to lose. But
mm,
like I say, people were trying. There were things that were happening, and even in the '60s or whatever. I mean, if you went to the AMP and you saw white people, we might speak. How you doing? Hello. But after that, you go your separate ways. You knew where you belonged. You knew where you were supposed to be and where you were not supposed to be. And even with the Halls Hill, we had a wall that separated us. But I climbed that wall one day. Me and some friends, we just played with the other kids. The kids can do that. But I think people sort of didn't want that, over there here, because if you go above the Mason-Dixon line, New Jersey and New York, they were not, they were
yeah.
through with that thing. So people, I think, were trying, and it just seems like we're going backwards now. So I don't know, I don't
Mhm.
know, what's happening right now.
You mentioned a literal physical wall,
Mhm.
in Halls Hill. How long did it take? I'm curious. How long did it take for that wall to come down?
It ca it was built, like, around maybe 1935, came down in either 18 or I think came down in 2018. It was a big storm in 2018, and, a lot of Arlington was flooded, and that water made most of that wall come down. But
Wow.
there's a piece of it still up there. There's a little bit of it still left, and there's a marker,
Uh-huh.
there to tell people what it stood for. So,
Uh-huh.
um the thing about it is people need to realize, though, you didn't see the wall. You had to know, you knew it was there because back in those days, we had a lot of wooded areas.
Mhm.
So it was behind the woods, or maybe maybe behind somebody's house or something, it was there in the backyard. But, we knew it was there. because
Mhm.
you go in the woods and look around, scout around, you saw these things. So
Gotcha. I wanted to ask, this is another just me being curious question. I know DC is, like, famous for its Black culture, I think, I hear a
mhm,
lot about go-go music,
mhm,
or I think it's called, like, hand dance.
mhm.
How connected were Arlington and DC back in the day?
Extremely, extremely. Our radio station was WOL, which came right out of there. Um, we couldn't go to the movie theaters until I guess I was maybe I don't know, maybe I was 10 or 12 when we could go. So you went to DC, and one of the places was the Howard Theater, where you would see all the big acts, James Brown, the Temptations. You went there. There was so many. We did our shopping there. We did your shopping in DC. Like I said before, a lot of black kids in the 50s and 60s, they went to school over there for high school. So we were very, very connected. We would go there for things. Of course, they would never come here. They didn't come here, but we would have to go over there for a lot of things.
Mhm,
Should go to the shrimp boat to get your fish, have your picnic at Hanks Point. F Street was really, really big and popular, H Street. So I remember we had our family portraits. We had to go over there. You go to the hospital, you go to DC, you go to Freeman's Hospital, or some women would go to, I think, Children's Hospital.
mhm,
So, yeah, it was very, very important.
mhm. Got it. Um, another question I had, um, you mentioned we were talking a little bit ago about, displacement, and
Mhm,
I know a lot of things have certainly changed since Jim Crow, since
mhm,
integration has come along and
mhm,
society has evolved a lot,
mhm.
um, but has the displacement stopped in Arlington?
Well, of course, it's not as harsh as it was, but a lot of people have been, how you say, they can't afford to live here. I'm just going to put it
Right.
that way. Ireland is not affordable.
Mhm.
And, as much as I love Arlington, I would tell people, you can't afford to live here, don't come here. I mean, it's very, very expensive and it's not getting any cheaper.
Mhm.
So the sad thing is that the neighborhoods that I was talking about, people, you know, sold their mama's house, sold their daddy's house, and a lot of white people now are buying all the property. Like I say, Horse Hill is only like maybe 9% black now. I think Green Valley is the same thing. A lot of the culture is still there because some of those people are still there that do things like Sandra Green. I think Wilma Jones is up there, and so they do a lot of things make people remember some of the things that went on there
Mhm.
that made that place such a unique area.
Mhm. Mhm.
But um, a lot of people moved down to Woodbridge, and a lot of them gone to Maryland. But we
How
all on Halls Hill, a lot of the old residents come back every Thanksgiving. Every Thanksgiving at 10 a.m., we meet on the playground, and it used to be hundreds of people. Now, not so many coming back. Maybe 100, something like that. But you're seeing some of your old neighbors from back in the day, and it's just so weird because they're not like neighbors; they're like family. It's so
Mhm.
odd how close we really were.
Mhm. Mhm.
Things happen.
How do you preserve those memories today? I know
Mhm.
you run the Black Heritage Museum of
Right,
Arlington.
right.
How do you go about trying to keep that history alive?
Doing things like this, and we're posting, and I got some school visits this month telling the kids about it, and it just saddens me that this information I didn't learn until I didn't know about Freedman's Village until I was grown. I didn't even know there were slaves in Arlington. We were never taught that. I remember this is back a long time ago. Uh, we went to Mount Vernon, and they had the enslaved people enacting, and they were all white ladies. It's like you learn, you learn things, and but people need to know. And
Mhm.
even when we talked earlier about Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman, they live here in Arlington. People need to know that.
Mhm.
People need to know that. we had the first integrated school here in Arlington, and that a lot of slavery was abolished up here before the proclamation was signed. People would come up here. You join the Union Army, they put you in a camp somewhere. So there was a lot of little things that we have that I wish more people would know about.
Mhm, mhm. Is there anything that you do to observe Black History Month?
Uh, no, because Black History to me is 365 days a year. It's not in just one month. And this month I'm so busy going here, there, and it. I mean, I'm glad that people thinking about us, but come on, we can do this in January. We can do it in March, April, May, June.
Mhm,
I just be glad when it's just called plain old American history because that's what it is.
mhm,
For some reason, and it's getting worse with this administration we have, they want to downplay what these people have done and what my people have done. They want to, they're tearing down exhibits. They've hurt us tremendously. But we're not even getting the grants that we were getting. And we're having it tough right now. We talked about Queen City, and I worked hard with a marker put in the area where Queen City was. We can't even have a ceremony because the Park Service is scared of this Trump administration. So um, I got to be out there. I got to be out there on the ground and getting people interested and just knowing because knowledge is power.
mhm,
And even some of these new residents, it's just they need to know what they're coming into, or how this got to be.
mhm.
And so that's our job is to keep it going. And I'm going to be out here until I drop.
That's
Pretty much, probably.
good for you. Is there anything that we're still learning about Black history in Arlington?
Well, we're learning about the resilience and the importance of these people. One day you should just Google what African Americans have invented in Arlington. It will blow your mind. I mean, there's so many things like the egg beater, the internet, the traffic lights that we see every day, the
Mhm,
GPS. It's just so much. And people need to discover this.
mhm,
Our history has been downplayed for so many years. And so, and now even more now because of, administration we have right now. But these stories, I'm telling you, interest so many people. And
mhm,
when I go to like elementary school, these kids are so interested in Black history
mhm,
because it's nothing they never heard, they never knew. And I remember when we were the first Black kids to go to Reed Elementary School, and we would hear about George Washington, blah 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 blah, but never any of our heroes. And I was in school before Martin Luther King had died, and then when he died, then he became the whatever. But it's a good feeling to know that your people have contributed. And
mhm,
for years and years and years, I had no idea about the contributions that African Americans had made, not only to to the world, but to Arlington.
mm,
And so I think people need to know. I think they
mhm.
should know.
I know that Arlington is in some ways still in the process of reckoning with its past and
Hmm.
acknowledging its past.
Hmm.
Um, are you involved with the Stumbling Stones project?
Yes, I am. It's a committee of four of us: Tim Aiken, Jessica Kaplan, myself, and Nancy. I think Nancy's last name right now, but
Mhm,
it's four of us that are involved in it. It is a lot of work, and it's a lot. I mean, emails every day,
mhm,
starting 7 in the morning, probably 2 in the morning, and it's going to take years to do this because we have so
mhm,
many names now.
mhm,
And so, um, I mean, up until December, we were having ceremonies like just every weekend, every other day or whatever. And we're going to start again, I think in
mhm,
March, going out again. So it's a tense transition, but it's worth it. It needs to be done. We have a lot of names that we want to do on the Arlington House property, but because that's part of the national parks, we can't do it
mhm,
because of the Trump administration. But later on down the line, hopefully a lot of this will change.
mhm.
Get somebody new in there.
For our listeners who might not know, can you just describe briefly what the Stumbling Stones project is?
Stumbling Stones is actually Tim Aiken, who's one of our leaders in this project. I read an article how they did something like that with plaques with stones for the
Mhm.
Holocaust victims over in Russia. And he wanted to do it here for slaves. And so what we do is we go into the census and blah, 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 and we try to find people, ex-slaves that were here, enslaved people, and we find their names.
Mhm.
We find out where they served, where they were, and we put well, they're really plaques. They're not stones anymore. We did the first ones we did were like stones, but you can't have those on the sidewalk. People would trip over them, right? So they're on plaques and they're in the sidewalk and they're
Mhm.
close to the vicinity where these people were enslaved. And it's really taken off.
Mm.
We're getting a lot of support. We just got a grant from Virginia Humanities. We're getting newspaper coverage. We got a NAACP award. So it's an interest. I'm just hoping that we get some more younger people involved because
Mm.
this is going to go on for a long time doing this. This is not going to, stop anytime soon.
Hmm. Yeah, how expansive is your ambition for that project? I mean, how many stumbling stones do you hope to install?
It's a lot, thousands, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's going to be a ongoing project. It's going
Yep.
to be going on for a long time.
Are there any other projects you're involved in right now to honor and acknowledge Black history in Arlington?
Well, we do a lot. We work inside and outside the walls of the museum. So we're going to continue to have programs. Got a lot of school classes, kids coming this month. Of course, I'm out doing the speeches, and we're, you know, radio, television. We're doing whatever it needs possible. We've even done some protesting. I knew we were out there for Black Lives Matter. A lady down the street from where the museum is, she was about to lose her home in the domain. We were there for her. So it's all about information and support, and
Mhm.
um, and trying to do it in a way where nobody has to pay for it. But we do need money
Mhm.
because we pay a lot of rent to be where we are. Everything we do is free to the public.
Mhm. Mhm.
Last year, we did a couple of plays and we had some nice events. Oftentimes, we might partner with the Arlington Historical Society and do things. And so I think everybody's gearing up now for the 250th anniversary, which is going to be an Arlington event, I think in June at Kenmore School. But look out for that. That's going to be pretty big.
Great, great. And what about at the Black Heritage Museum of Arlington? What should, listeners hope to see if they pay a visit to you down on
Well,
Columbia?
you come there and you're going to learn about some very, very brave people that risk their lives, their livelihoods, their families, and all in efforts to make our lives easier today.
Mhm.
These people made our lives easier. One of the ways we can pay homage is to learn about them, learn
Mhm.
about their experiences, about who dug a lot of those graves over there at the Arlington Cemetery, and who helped save all the artifacts in the art house. Learn about somebody like Joan Mulholland, who was a white anti-racist activist,
Mhm.
and used her
Hmm.
white privilege to help Black people vote and to sit in a lunch counter. We got stuff about Dorothy Ham. We've got talking about celebrities like Roberta Flack, and then the Dr. Drew, who invented blood plasma, was an Arlington resident. So it goes
Hmm.
on and on about the neighborhoods.
Wow.
We have a very little
Hmm.
place, but we have a lot of information there. A lot of
Wow.
information.
Wow, I had no idea about a lot of those things.
Yeah, Freeman's Village. Said by Roberta Flack. We had the first all Black um, volunteer fire department was right here in Arlington. The first Black one beneath
Mhm.
the Mason-Dixon line, and it's still thriving today. So we got a lot of information, and people will be surprised with some of the things that they may learn that you
Yeah,
didn't know. And I was
yeah,
once in that
yeah, yeah. For people who want to learn more about Arlington's Black history, where would you recommend that they start?
start at the Black Heritage Museum. And then after that, you can get a lot of information at the public library.
Mm,
They have a
mhm,
lot of information. They've done a lot of research as well. Our founder is Evelyn Syphax, who the Syphax building is named after her. She was the first, probably only Black president of the Arlington Historical Society. But they
mm,
really weren't doing any African American history. That's when they started the Black Heritage Museum. And when I joined, we were doing just virtual stuff, just stuff you go online, and then it occurred to me as these people probably want to really have something that people can actually put their hands on and see. And I began collecting artifacts, and I'm still collecting things so people can come in and actually see some things live. And I will be glad to be your tour guide if you want me to, but a lot of things you can just read for yourself, but I'll be glad to give anybody a tour.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you for this really wide-ranging conversation. I really had no idea
Okay.
about, yeah, a whole lot of different things. Is there anything else you want people to know about Arlington's Black history this February?
Right. Well, just know that our churches are still here. The churches go way back to Freeman's Village. We have walks. Go to our website, and we have history walks that we do, and maybe come in, and be a part of some of the events that we're doing. Um, and you can volunteer. You get
Mhm.
involved. It's we're open, and come see us. We're open on Thursday and Saturday through 6. And I'm
Wonderful.
usually I'm usually there.
Great. Well, I'm sure maybe you'll get some extra visitors after that.
Uh, okay, come on.
Alrighty. Well, Scott, thank you so much for your time. I really
All right,
appreciate
no
it.
problem, no problem.
Alrighty. Take care.
That's it?
That's it. That's all I
All right.
got.
All right, see ya.